Marcus adjusted his worn field jacket against the evening chill as he walked the familiar forest path behind his abandoned research station. 2 years had passed since the funding dried up. Since his research partner Elena had taken that position in the city, since everything fell apart, now he lived alone among the pine trees, tending a small vegetable garden and trying to forget what his life used to mean. The forest grew quiet as dusk settled, but something caught his attention through the tree line. A soft, pulsing glow emanated from the clearing where he used to collect soil samples. Marcus crept closer, his heart quickening with scientific curiosity he thought had died long ago. What he saw defied every law of biology. He knew a young woman knelt beside a patch of disturbed earth, her skin shimmering with an opalescent quality that reminded him of moonlight on water. Her hair fell in silver-white waves and her fingers glowed faintly as she pressed them into the soil. She was trying to plant something. Whatever she was doing wasn't working. Marcus ducked behind a massive oak, watching as she withdrew small seed-like objects from a crystalline pouch. They pulsed with inner light, clearly not from Earth. She would place them carefully in the prepared soil, whisper something in a musical language, then wait. After several minutes, she would dig them up again. Examining them with growing frustration, her alien features couldn't hide her disappointment. Each failed attempt made her shoulders sag a little more. Marcus recognized that look of scientific defeat. He'd worn it himself many times during failed experiments. But there was something else in her expression, something deeper. Desperation, maybe even grief. She tried again with a different seed, this one glowing blue instead of the previous amber. She placed it gently, covered it with earth, and began what looked like a ritual. Her hands moved in complex patterns above the planting site, and soft, harmonic tones drifted through the evening air. Nothing happened. Xena, though Marcus didn't know her name yet, sat back on her heels and covered her face with her luminous hands. Her shoulders shook silently, and Marcus felt his heart clench with unexpected empathy. He'd spent years studying plant biology, understanding the delicate relationships between organisms and their environments. Even without knowing what she was attempting to grow, he could see the fundamental problem. She was treating earth soil like whatever growing medium existed on her home world. Marcus watched as she tried once more, this time with a seed that pulsed with gentle green light. She prepared the spot with the same meticulous care, spoke her musical incantations, and waited with such hope in her strange, beautiful eyes that Marcus had to look away. When she dug up another failed seedling, he saw her spirit break a little more. The scientist in him wanted to step forward, to offer help, to share what he knew about Earth's growing conditions. But the lonely man hiding behind the tree was terrified. What if she was dangerous? What if there were others? What if this was some kind of invasion? Yet as he watched her pack up her glowing seeds with such careful sadness, Marcus realized she wasn't a conqueror. She was just someone far from home, trying to make something grow in foreign soil. The parallel to his own life wasn't lost on him. As full darkness settled in her crystalline skin began to glow more brightly, providing its own illumination, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He wouldn't approach her, not yet. But he would help in the only way he knew how. Tomorrow. He would leave her something that might make the difference between failure and the miracle of new life taking root. Marcus woke before dawn, his mind racing with possibilities. In his small cabin, he gathered supplies with the methodical precision of his old research days: native wildflower seeds, soil samples from different parts of the forest, and a small notebook where he quickly sketched soil composition diagrams. He'd spent the sleepless night thinking about what type of earth plants might adapt to whatever growing medium her alien seeds required. Morning glories were hardy, adaptive. Wildflowers could thrive in various soil conditions. Maybe if she understood how earth plants worked, she could adapt her techniques. Creeping through the pre-dawn forest, Marcus felt more alive than he had in months. Scientific purpose coursed through his veins as he approached the clearing where Xena had been working. She wasn't there, but evidence of her continued efforts remained. Several small patches of disturbed earth marked her attempts, and a few withered alien seedlings lay discarded at the clearing's edge. Marcus knelt where she had been kneeling, feeling the soil between his fingers. It was completely sterile. Whatever process she was using had killed all the beneficial microorganisms that earth plants needed to survive. Marcus left his offerings. It was carefully arranged on a flat stone near her workspace. Native seeds in small cloth pouches, each labeled with simple drawings showing planting depth and spacing. He included samples of rich forest loam teeming with beneficial bacteria, and even added a small jar of compost from his own garden. Then he retreated to his hiding spot behind the oak and waited. Xena arrived as the morning mist was lifting, moving through the forest with fluid grace that seemed almost like floating. When she saw his gifts, she stopped abruptly, her opalescent skin shifting to warmer hues that Marcus interpreted as surprise or possibly alarmed. She approached the stone, examining each offering with intense focus. Her fingers hovered over the seed packets, and Marcus realized she could somehow sense the life force within them. When she touched the rich soil sample, her eyes widened with what looked like recognition. Over the following hour, Marcus watched her conduct her own scientific analysis. She would take tiny amounts of his soil, touch them to her lips as if tasting, then make soft sounds that reminded him of a tuning fork. She was reading the biological composition through methods he couldn't begin to understand. When she finally selected one of his wildflower seed packets, Marcus held his breath. Xena prepared a new planting site, but this time she mixed his earth soil with whatever substrate she'd been using. The combination seemed to please her, because her skin brightened noticeably. She planted the earth seeds using her alien techniques, but in the hybrid soil mixture. The result was immediate and beautiful. Tiny green shoots pushed through the soil within minutes, growing at an impossible rate, but with the familiar structure of Earth's plants. Xena gasped, a sound of pure joy that transcended any language barrier. She looked around the clearing, as if searching for her mysterious benefactor. And Marcus pressed himself deeper behind the oak. Her eyes paused on his hiding spot for a long moment, and he was certain she knew he was there. Instead of calling out or investigating, she did something that made Marcus's heart race. She reached into her crystalline pouch and selected several of her alien seeds, placing them carefully on the stone where his gifts had been. Then she began working with one of his soil samples, mixing it with substances from small vials that glowed with soft inner light. She was reciprocating, offering to share her knowledge in exchange for his. Marcus watched in amazement as she planted one of her seeds in the hybrid mixture. This time, when she performed her musical ritual, something extraordinary happened. The alien seed not only grew, it flourished, creating a plant unlike anything he'd ever seen. It had the root structure of an earth plant, but leaves that caught and stored light like living solar panels. When she was done, Xena stood and spoke directly toward his hiding place. Though he couldn't understand her words, her tone was unmistakably that of gratitude and invitation. Marcus remained hidden, but his heart was pounding with excitement. They were communicating through the universal language of cultivation, sharing knowledge across species barriers through the simple act of helping things grow. As Xena gathered her things to leave, she paused one more time by the stone. She touched her lips, then pressed her glowing fingers to the earth where their hybrid plants were thriving. Marcus understood. Tomorrow, there would be more exchanges, more learning, more of this impossible partnership blooming between them like the miraculous plants they were nurturing together. Days blended into a rhythm of botanical courtship that both thrilled and terrified Marcus. Each morning brought new offerings from Xena, alien seeds that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of distant stars. Each evening, he would leave Earth specimens that might complement her otherworldly cultivation methods. Their silent garden was becoming something unprecedented, a fusion of two worlds' botanical knowledge that created plants of impossible beauty and function. Flowers that generated their own light, vegetables that seemed to purify the air around them, vines that grew in perfect mathematical spirals while producing fruit that tasted like sunshine felt. Marcus had taken to keeping, sketching the hybrid plants and documenting their growth patterns. His scientific training warred with his emotional investment in this secret, collaboration with an alien gardener who had somehow become the most important person in his solitary world. On The 7th day of their exchanges. Marcus arrived at the clearing to find something that stopped him in his tracks. Xena had created what could only be described as a holographic display, showing images of a dying world beneath twin purple suns. She was waiting for him. No longer pretending she didn't know he watched from the forest shadows. "Please," she said in accented but clear English. The word carrying such weight of desperation that Marcus found himself stepping out from behind his protective oak before fear could stop him. Up close, she was even more remarkable. Her skin shifted like living opal, reflecting emotions in subtle color changes. Her eyes held depths that spoke of intelligence vast and ancient. Yet there was something heartbreakingly young in her expression. "My world dies," she continued, gesturing to the holographic images. Marcus saw withered landscapes, cities going dark, plants that looked remarkably similar to the ones in their garden turning to ash. Seeds will not grow in old soil. Old ways fail. Marcus stepped closer, his scientific mind engaging with the problem even as his heart raced at finally hearing her voice. "The soil biology is depleted," he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. "You need to rebuild the symbiotic relationships between plants and microorganisms." Xena nodded eagerly. "Yes, but how?" "We tried, but ... double quotes. She made a gesture of futility that needed no translation for the next hour. Marcus found himself in the strangest and most wonderful conversation of his life. They sat together in their impossible garden, surrounded by plants that shouldn't exist, while he explained Earth's approach to soil. Restoration, and she shared her people's advanced understanding of plant, consciousness, and energy manipulation. "Your people think of plants as individual organisms," Xena explained, her fingers trailing over a hybrid flower that responded to her touch by brightening. "But they are ... connected. Part of great web of life energy." Marcus nodded. "We call it an ecosystem. We're just beginning to understand how interconnected it all is." As they talked, their hands occasionally brushed while tending to the plants between them. Each contact sent warmth through Marcus that had nothing to do with her luminous skin, and everything to do with the connection growing between them. When Xena laughed at his description of earth bees, the sound was like music made visible, and Marcus realized he was falling in love with more than just her alien botany. "I must return soon," she said as the afternoon light began to fade. "My ship repairs. My people call for seeds that might save our world." The thought of her leaving hit Marcus like a physical blow. "How long?" he managed to ask. "Days. Perhaps 7 more rotations of your sun." Marcus looked around at their thriving garden, the impossible plants they'd created together, at her face that had become more precious to him than his own life. 7 days to figure out how to save her world and keep her in his. "Then we work together," he said, reaching out to take her opalescent hand in his earth-stained one. "Really together. No more hiding. No more silent exchanges. We save your world, and maybe ... double quotes. He couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't voice the hope that was growing in his chest like their hybrid plants. Skin shifted to warm golden hues as she smiled. "And maybe we save each other," she finished for him. Their first kiss tasted like starlight and possibility, surrounded by plants that glowed softly in approval of this new variety of growth taking root between two hearts from different worlds. Hearts and worlds. Kalideth, next 3 days, transformed Marcus's solitary existence into something he'd never experienced before. Xena moved into his cabin with the natural ease of water finding its level, bringing alien technology that made his simple home feel like a botanical research station from the future. Their work had urgency now, but it was work done hand in hand, minds and hearts synchronized in ways that made Marcus understand why ancient poets wrote about souls recognizing each other across impossible distances. "Show me," Xena would whisper in the mornings, her luminous fingers tracing patterns in the air above soil samples while Marcus explained microbial relationships with the passion of a man who'd found his calling again. "Feel this," she would reply, guiding his hands to touch plants that hummed with life energy he could somehow sense when she was near, teaching him to hear the songs that all growing things sang if you knew how to listen. There, Hybrid garden had become a miracle of biological collaboration. Plants that could process soil toxins while producing healing compounds. Flowers that generated atmospheric purifiers. Vegetables that contained nutritional profiles impossible in nature but perfect for supporting life on Xena's dying world. But it was in the quiet moments, between their scientific breakthroughs, that Marcus discovered the depth of what was growing between them. Evenings found them curled together on his old couch, her skin providing gentle illumination as she told him stories of her homeworld. Cities that grew like coral reefs, people who could sense the emotional states of plants, art forms that involved cultivating living sculptures that lasted for centuries. People will not understand, she said one night, her head resting on his chest as they watched their garden through the window. The hybrid plants glowed softly in the darkness, creating patterns of light that seemed almost like communication. They will say I have forgotten my purpose, become too attached to alien ways. Marcus's arms tightened around her, and my people would think I've lost my mind. He's talking about plant consciousness and energy healing. He pressed his lips to her silvery hair. But we're not crazy, are we? This is real, what we've found together. Xena lifted her head to look at him, her opalescent skin shifting to deep blues and purples that he'd learned meant profound emotion. More real than anything I have known? On my world, we mate for practical reasons. Genetic compatibility, resource sharing, social advancement. But with you? ... Double quotes, she touched his face with fingers that tingled with warmth. With you, I understand why your poets write of love that conquers worlds. Their kissing had become an exploration of more than physical intimacy. When Xena's emotions ran high, her skin would pulse with colors that seemed to sync with Marcus's heartbeat. When he held her, she could somehow sense the depth of feelings he'd never been able to put into words. Making love was like becoming part of the garden they'd created together. A fusion that transcended species and created something entirely new. On the fourth morning, as they worked side by side processing seeds that might save her world, Xena suddenly went very still. Her skin shifted to pale silver, and she lifted her head like an animal scenting danger. They come, she said simply. Marcus felt his heart drop. Your people. She nodded, already beginning to gather their seed samples with practiced efficiency. The rescue ship. I must go to meet them, to explain what we have accomplished. I'll come with you, Marcus said immediately. No. Her refusal was gentle but firm. They will see you as contamination, as the reason their engineer has delayed too long on a dying world. Let me speak first. Show them what we have created. Then perhaps ... She didn't finish, but Marcus understood. Perhaps there might be a future for them that didn't require choosing between love and duty. As Xena prepared to leave their sanctuary, Marcus caught her hand. Whatever happens, this isn't ending. What we've built together, what we've become, I'll fight for it. Xena's skin blazed with golden light as she kissed him fiercely. Then we fight together, my strange earth gardener. We fight for both our worlds. Watching her walk toward her crashed ship in the distance, Marcus knew their greatest challenge wasn't behind them. It was about to begin. The rescue ship landed like a falling star in the meadow beyond the forest, its crystalline hull reflecting the morning light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Marcus waited in their garden, surrounded by the impossible plants they'd created together, while Xena went to face her people. Hours passed. He tried to work, documenting their hybrid creations, preparing seed samples, but his hands shook too badly to make decent notes. What if they took her immediately? What if they saw their botanical fusion as contamination rather than breakthrough? What if he never saw her again? When she finally returned, 3 figures followed her through the trees. Marcus's first glimpse of other members of Xena's species took his breath away. They moved with the same fluid grace, skin shifting through spectrums of color that seemed to indicate complex emotional states. But there was something colder about them. More distant, his companions examined the hybrid garden with expressions Marcus couldn't read, touching plants and exchanging rapid musical phrases in their native language. One of them, clearly a leader by the deference the others showed, had skin that remained a steady deep blue throughout the examination. "This is Kale," Zena said, her own colors muted and cautious. "He leads our agricultural restoration efforts. And this is Nira, our bioengineering specialist." Kale spoke to Zena in their musical language, his tone carrying obvious skepticism. Nira moved through the garden like a critical inspector, examining each hybrid with scientific detachment. "They question whether these crossbreeds can survive on our world," Zena translated. "They worry that Earth biology will prove incompatible with our ecosystem." Marcus stepped forward, his nervousness transformed into protective passion for their work. "Then let's show them it works both ways." Over the next several hours, Marcus demonstrated everything they'd discovered about creating sustainable growing environments that could support both Earth and alien plants. He showed them soil restoration techniques, explained symbiotic relationships between different species, and watched their skepticism slowly transform into scientific interest. Nira began asking questions through Zena, her color patterns shifting to warmer hues as Marcus explained how their hybrid plants could actually accelerate ecosystem recovery rather than hindering it. But it was Kale who asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "He wants to know," Zena said, her skin pale with tension, "why you help us. What you expect in return for this knowledge that could save our world." Marcus looked at Zena, at her people, at the garden they'd created together. "I expect nothing," he said simply, "but I hope for everything." Kale's blue skin darkened, clearly not understanding. "I hope Zena chooses to stay," Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. "Not because I'm holding your agricultural salvation hostage, but because what we've built together is more than just hybrid plants. We've created a new way of thinking about life, about growth, about connection between different forms of existence." He gestured to their thriving garden. "Look what we accomplished in a few days working together. Imagine what we could achieve with time, with resources, with your people and mine collaborating instead of living in isolation." Zena translated his words, but Marcus could see in her shifting colors that she was adding her own arguments, her own passionate defense of what they'd discovered. The debate that followed was intense, musical voices rising and falling like a symphony of disagreement and possibility. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but he could read the emotional colors painting three alien faces as they argued about duty, innovation, contamination, and hope. Finally, Nira spoke directly to Marcus in careful English. "Your hybrid plants work. They will save our world, but Zena is our best engineer. We cannot leave her." "Then don't," Marcus said. "Establish a research station here. Let our people learn from each other. Zena and I can develop more hybrid solutions, train others in these techniques, build a bridge between our worlds." Kale's skin shifted through several color changes as he considered this. "And if your governments object to alien presence?" he asked. Marcus smiled, reaching for Zena's hand. "Then we start small, one garden at a time, one breakthrough at a time. Love has a way of making the impossible seem reasonable." The negotiations took 2 more days. But in the end, science and love proved equally compelling arguments. Zena would stay for 1 Earth year, working with Marcus to establish a botanical research exchange. If successful, other members of her species would join them. And eventually, if both worlds agreed, a formal alliance might develop, as her people prepared to return home with their seed samples and restoration techniques. Zena and Marcus stood in their garden, watching the rescue ship prepare for departure. "No more hiding behind trees," Zena said, her skin glowing with content golden hues. "No more empty houses," Marcus replied, pulling her close as their impossible plant swayed in the evening breeze, singing the soft songs of growth, connection, and love that transcends the vast distances between stars. Their first garden had been just the beginning.